Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Retro Wrestling Room. We've got a very special guest with us today. Somebody that I've wanted on the podcast since the very beginning. I actually wanted them on the podcast even before I had started the podcast. They were a very big deal on the indie scene a couple of years ago. They kind of took the indie scene by storm. We have the Nightmare Factory graduate, the protagonist of professional wrestling, Kid Bandit. How's it going today? It's great to have you.
Thank you. And that meant a lot. Like, you wanted me before the podcast. That's thank you.
Yeah, because when I started the podcast, there were like a few people, even a couple of years ago, there were a few people that I definitely wanted on there, because I think when they tell good stories, they've got a good story. And, you know, I kind of always wanted to have different types of people on this podcast, because I didn't ever want it to be, oh, they've got the same type of guest once again, you know? So yeah, I've definitely always wanted to do it on the podcast.
Thank you. Oh, that's yeah, no, there's lots of story. I feel like I say it a lot, but it's like kind of like one of those tropey things. But I believe everyone is like the protagonist of their story, you know? So like everybody has a story to tell, but sometimes stories are similar because they're similar people. So yeah, like, you know, I'm a very, let's just say, unique individual in more ways than one, right? So
that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
How have you been anyway? What's been happening since the last time that we've seen you in the ring?
Since the last time, oh boy, previously on Kid Bandit. Well, I got hurt, unfortunately, and it was originally diagnosed like way worse. And it happened around the time where I was feeling a little disillusioned about my career a little bit. I was becoming more of a social media person, which, you know, I've learned over time to kind of like accept that as a necessary part of the job. But it definitely made me not happy with how I wrestled. I wasn't really doing like the matches I wanted to do. I was doing the matches that I knew was going to get the most engagement. And, you know, there's a bit of like feeling in your heart that kind of sinks a little bit when you compromise your art because you know what would like get more traction. Right. So here I am, you know, I took some time off to heal, and, you know, and getting out of wrestling for a bit, like, you know, I have I'm not afraid to admit it. I have my share of demons I have to overcome, like, in my personal life. So, you know, I fell back into a depressive spiral. Like, I started getting alcohol, like, you know, all over again. And there was definitely like a lot of like time to like watch old matches and just be like, yeah, I remember when I did these matches and I was way happier. And maybe it wasn't like in front of like big raucous crowds, but like I would see the smile on my face and like genuinely just like brimming, you know? So, you know, I made a promise to myself, if I ever get the chance to get back in the ring, like I would do it like not to, like without compromising what I was. Like I would do it because like it's my dream. And I was and that's another thing too. Like I felt like previously in Kid Bandit, I used to like seek out validation from everybody. It was because this is an aspect we kind of touched upon before the interview, but I figured I'd just segue into it. My career trajectory has been insane. Like it just if you want to give context or a little bit, like you want to take over and explain like a little bit of that,
because I mentioned to you beforehand, it's almost like what I would compare your career to was a band that had an overnight hit single, and then everybody expected them to go on this massive worldwide tour.
There's a movie like The Rocker,
right,
with Rainn Wilson. Like yeah, there's a lot of that. But yeah, go ahead.
But that's what it felt like to me, you know, from the outside, because you had only just started your career and you had kind of this like internet buzz around you at that time, and it felt like it was kind of the buzz that people have once they've been wrestling for about 5 years. And this was all happening within about 3 months. So,
Yeah.
like, to me, if it felt a lot like just looking at it from the outside, because I was seeing you being tagged in like, oh, please bring Kid Bandit to this country, please bring Kid Bandit to this country, and like to me, I was like, please give them a chance to like grow, and it just seemed like a lot straight away.
Yeah, but I wasn't gonna say no. Like I was gonna be
No, of
like, oh,
course not.
yeah, bring it on. But there was that element of like, oh crap, I gotta get good. Like, I like there was you mentioned I was from the Nightmare Factory, and shout out to the Nightmare Factory. It's such a great program in the sense that I know it's a very short program. It's 3 months, and I believe like some of the campers get to stay and use it as a training facility. I'm not really sure because I was part of the third batch of trainees, so I'm not really familiar with their process now, and I haven't really been back since because I'm from the West Coast. And I believe they're based out of the Georgia, Atlanta. There you go. Sorry, the city was escaping my head. So, um, when I was at the Nightmare Factories, we had some very varied insight to the business that I feel like other schools wasn't going to be able to like introduce to us. And one of the insights I got was from Glacier. So shout out Coach Glacier. He basically talked about how like in wrestling, you could be very talented. You could look the part. You could talk the part. You could have the personality. You can even have the connections. But ultimately, it's a timing thing. It's always going to be a timing thing. And I was thinking to myself like, okay, like very important lesson. Let's write that down in the notebook. And like I've always wanted to be a wrestler. When I first started training, I trained at Santino Brothers in Los Angeles. So shout out Santino Brothers. And when I first started out, I was very out of shape. I was like 240 pounds, like overweight for a 5'5" person. That was very, very robust. And I was out of shape. I was dealing like I was, still coming out from another alcoholic binge because I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. I'm working on it. It's always going to be a process. But when I was going through that, there was like almost like no chance in hell I was gonna like finish training because like they started telling us, hey, there only like out of like 30 people, only 2 will actually debut in like a wrestling school because like it does demand a lot of like sacrifice on your body and in your mind and in your heart, so you have to like really dig down deep like in all 3 aspects to see if like, hey, is this right for me? It's this right for me? Because like after like wrestling school is hard and it doesn't get easier after that because now you have to navigate the indie circuit, right? Or whatever career trajectory you'll have to deal with. I'm like, nope. So when I trained at Santino's, like I didn't really have any advantages in the physical department. Like I had an athletic background. I did combatives in the army, but like I wasn't like great. Like I knew the basics, and stuff like that. But I knew I wanted to wrestle a specific way. I wanted to like emulate like video games. I wanted to emulate like martial club on YouTube, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, like a lot of the martial artists. Definitely want like I love the choreography in Naruto, like Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, like so I've always wanted to like apply that kind of aesthetic to wrestling, and it's not like it's never been done before. Like immediately off the top of my head, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, like so in Japan, right? So there's definitely that, like it already exists in wrestling, but I wanted to put my spin on that kind of aesthetic. So, and in order to do that, I needed to like get to where my body is. So in Santino Brothers, I learned, hey, approach wrestling like a college student, like take notes. So when I get to the factory and Glacier was talking, like oh, here's what you need to like take from this, like the insight. That line immediately stood out to me. It's like, it's always the kind of thing. So when my career trajectory like blew up overnight on Twitter, and by the way, it blew up because of my hair. Like, let's be real. Cody Rhodes posted a picture of us on the day we were supposed to like do our camp showcase. Shout out Coach Cody, beat John Cena. So I was I was I was positioned in the front of the lineup because I was busy in the bathroom and I didn't know you were taking a photo. So so I was in the bathroom just like freaking out because I'm like, oh my god, this is it. I've been like I've lost so much weight. I've put in sacrifices. I thought I wasn't gonna be able to do it because COVID happened in the middle of my training. I really like I there was it was almost like validating like so much sacrifices to get there.
Hmm.
And then um so I was freaking the heck out. I go outside and Cody sees me. He's like, "Bandit, we almost forgot to take a picture of you." So I rush the heck in. I sit like I just take a knee in the front because like and I'm short anyway, so I guess that's where they're gonna put me anyway. But he takes that photo, posts it on Twitter, and it was like right like two matches before mine. Um, somebody comes up to me in the back and they go, "Hey, Bandit, you're trending on Twitter," and I'm like, "Twitter? What's Twitter?" Oh yeah, Twitter. Right. And I don't have a official Kid Bandit Twitter account. Like
Hmm.
really, like so like if you scroll down long enough in my Twitter account, you'll see me like complaining to like Ubisoft about like, hey, my Watch Dogs Legion like game is bugged. Like like so they said, oh, you're trending on Twitter, and like thankfully I changed my handle, like because I was like, okay, like we did a branding management class in the Nightmare Factory, and they said like try to get like your handle like uniform on all your platforms. So and like so that's another like way of me like putting over the Nightmare Factory is like a great like thing because like hey they talked about social media management like so I had a lot of like like I had and I'll come back to this later but like so I'm trending on Twitter and I haven't even debuted yet and like 5 minutes like before like my match I'm just like I gotta do something and I think I saw someone like tweet like oh like Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist. I'm like Jesus okay like all right I guess it's happening. I go out there I'm like freaking out. I had this like cool like jacket that I like lost forever because I don't even know where I put it but I was just so hyped like because like I'm like trending on Twitter even before I debuted. Did my match. Thankfully, it was great. Like the debut is still up on YouTube and the official Nightmare Factory channel. So like, it was very euphoric. But then I knew right away I needed to capitalize. Like it wasn't like okay, like finally got the debut out the way. And honestly, like that's all I wanted when I first started out, right? Like because I never thought I was even gonna debut, let alone go viral on Twitter. And
Right.
then there it was like so like okay let's apply the social media training, let's apply all the insights and stuff like that like the coaches at the factory like gave upon me. So like most of like the physical aspect of my career maybe I kind of like formed in like LA with Santino Brothers and like through my own training, but
Hmm.
like a lot of like the way to capitalize on myself on like my on the identity on the brand on the timing, on the insight, on how to approach people to get like, cause like it's like you did mention like, oh, I'm being tagged by all these to all these promotions, like
Yeah.
and stuff. But like, hey, like that's only step one. Step two is how do I manifest that, like using like the momentum I'm gaining online. So, I really had to like approach it in a two front like mindset of like, hey, I had to get good in the ring
Hmm.
one, because like, hey, like it's pointless if you're getting all these bookings and like you're just not like bombing everything. And then the other aspect is like, hey, how do I stay relevant? How do I like go? Because here's the thing about wrestling too, like, and like, sorry for like going off on a bunch of
No,
tangents, but
it's
I'm
okay. No.
trying to like circle back to each point. But here's the thing about wrestling: it's like we are trained as fans to expect something weekly. Like because it's a
Hmm.
weekly thing, right? Like it's like it's a like for the longest time, like I think like Michael Cole would like say like the welcome to the longest weekly running television show in like the United States or something like that or something to that effect, right? And I'm like, okay, like so the average wrestling fan has a mind span of 1 week, and therefore like the business plan has to be like every week you have to have something, you know. So I applied that mindset to my career, and thankfully like through a lot of trial and error and just kind of learning how to navigate the ropes on the spotlight, because like god forbid that's like that's a difficult aspect too, like just being a noob and like
Right.
it's like like you're playing a video game and you're brand new to the game, but like you boosted your character to like the max level,
Yeah.
like like end game raids, but you're like you had no idea what you're doing because you're just like, oh, I could keep up, don't get me wrong, but like where do I go, you know? And then there is the there is this aspect that also happened at the same time. so so yeah, lots of lore on top of lore on top of lore on top of lore, and to tie back to the original plot point, like that we started talking about, um, it definitely felt like I had to, like when I'm coming back, like I'm the first time around, I was figuring so much of it out. But I also learned, like, because like I said, like I applied very like student aspect of it to this. And I understood right away, hey, it's not like, it's a lot of like understanding you're not gonna please everybody. You shouldn't try to please everybody. Like because like if you try to please everybody, there's a pretty good chance you're not gonna please yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like and I feel like a lot of the drama, a lot of the issues in pro wrestling is caused by insecurities. Like, people start like beef because they're insecure about something or whatever, and or maybe they just have different opinions, but like, I didn't want to deal I don't want to come back and not be happy chasing my dream. Because you see
Right.
a lot of people be very miserable like doing this, and I'm like, yo, this is us chasing our dreams. Like not many people get to say that. Not many people have the privilege to be able to chase their dream. Not a lot of people are lucky enough to like be in the ring. What we do isn't like a hobby. It's a privilege. And we're putting each other's lives in each other's hands. Like whenever we step in foot in the ring, so you have to take that seriously. And if you're miserable, you're not gonna take it as seriously. You're just kind of like half-ass it. And I don't want to like like no, like the fans don't want to see you half-ass it. Like you don't want to see yourself half-ass it. Like so, like, coming back, I needed to get in that right mindset.
Mm.
I needed to approach this in a way that's healthy for me as a person, healthier for my body, and just be, because the other lesson that Glacier like talked about in the Dynamite Factory, and I swear I'm gonna stop yapping once I get to this point because I think this is like a very neat way to wrap it up, right? The coolest lesson that I learned in the Nightmare Factory, and I didn't get it at the time, but I get it now, is that fans live vicariously through our stories. Like the stories that we tell in the ring, the stories of our characters, the stories of our journeys. Like for example, like the Cody Rhodes storyline where he won the world title, like like the whole finish the story thing, like yeah, without context, it's like, hey, he failed to win the big one after he won the Royal Rumble, but he gets a second chance. Like it's a second chance story. But with context, you understood, like, hey, this is a validation for Dusty. This is validation for Dustin. This is a validation for Cody, who left and like tried to build his own kingdom and like and bet on himself and went all in, and then he goes back and he's like, hey, he's a prodigal prince, like he's coming back, and then he failed, but there's redemption. So like with context, like there's so much more emotional depth, emotional weight. And I feel like my story being as unique and as like like chaotic as it is, maybe it doesn't like specifically like everything relate to another person, but there's elements from my journey to get to where I'm at now that will resonate to somebody. And when Glacier talked about like the most important lesson, like, is that when fans live vicariously through you, you have to take that responsibility seriously. You can't like because what wrestling was to me when I was a kid, it was so important to me. Like I was like, man, like like I don't have a lot of like role models in life, but I could relate to the lessons I'm learning from like
Yeah.
from like wrestling, which is silly because like sometimes wrestling can be very like crap. You know what I mean? But like but when it's good, it's great. When it's good,
That's
it's
it.
great. So I like I knew right away, it's like, yeah, no, I gotta take this responsibility seriously. And I didn't get it because I never thought I'd get fans. I never thought I'd get a following. But then I did. But then I had one, and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm coming back, I need to tell the story that like, hey, sometimes you lose your path, but as long as you like take a step back, breathe, you can find your way again. And that's what I'm trying to be now. I'm trying to like stay true to the dream that I have, the goals that I've set for myself, and like, ultimately I don't want to be corporate. Like, like that's
Mm,
not me. Like, I tried really hard. I mean, if it happens, great, but like, I don't want to compromise who I am as a person, because like, we kind of live in an era where everybody wants people to compromise for their own like personal beliefs and stuff like
mm,
that. And I already got to deal with that outside wrestling. I don't want to deal with it in wrestling. Like, I want to be secure with myself, so I'm not like starting drama. And if I'm secure with who I am as a person, like every time someone like tries to like say something back to me, I'm like, well, you're wrong. Block. Like,
yeah,
and like I learned that like the hard way. Like I got cyberbullied before. So I'm in a much better place now,
good.
emotionally and spiritually. I kind of lost bits and pieces of like my old moveset because of injuries, because I have to be a lot safer now.
Mm.
But I also, uh, and you'll see clips like pop up here and there. I've been training the heck out of my kicks. I did 10,000 kicks. Like Bruce said, do 10,000 kicks. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pick one kick, and that's gonna be my thing, and you'll see it. You'll see it. So anyway, sorry for the app. That was like
No,
a
no,
real.
it's fine. It's no problem at all. I like that you describe it as like this big story that you want to involve your fans in and everything. And you've actually described it as you've called it like different seasons of your career. And I've never seen anybody else do that before. And I thought it was such a cool way of doing it. Like the first season seemed like this really young person in the wrestling world, and then the second one was kind of finding themselves. But then at the end of season 2, you had this injury, didn't know if it was going to continue, and season 3 is like this almost like bigger journey once again now. What is it about? Well, I'll put it this way: because you've been away now, was there any fear in you that, say, those fans that had been there for the previous seasons are not going to be there again, or are you excited? Are you more so excited for the next chapter?
Oh, that's a really like hard question to answer, because like, yeah, like obviously like, I'd be sad if like, like some of like the long-term people, like maybe like they don't resonate with me as much anymore. Maybe like, I'm just not their cup of tea anymore. Maybe I'm washed. Like, maybe because I like, I like, between injuries and like the estrogen and everything else in between, like, the poisons I've been putting in my body. Like, like there's definitely that element of like, I don't know if my body could keep up anymore, like, because like in my heart I could still move, and like in my head I could still move, but ultimately, like, that like these are compromises that like everybody in wrestling will deal with, like as their career progresses. Like, I'm sure there's people that preferred Stone Cold when he was a technician as opposed to like when he became a brawler, even though like, some like some would argue that like he did his best work as like ring master instead of like, Stone Cold. And it's like, okay, well, like wrestling is subjective, like, and far be it from me to try to like dictate like how fans like, want to like perceive me. Like, if they don't like me anymore, they don't like me anymore, and that's, like, that's unfortunate, but that's how it is, because like I have to stay true with like the vision and the standard I set for myself. And if and hope that like, hey, I'm gonna throw it in the wall, and I hope it sticks, and and the real ones are gonna like find that like awesome, and then maybe in 5-10 years, like, who knows where I'll be, who knows what kind of wrestler I'll be by then. Maybe I'll get really jacked, and and then I'll stop being like this like fancy flipper kicker, because like we see adjustments in wrestling all the time. Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes for the worse, but ultimately that's also like part of the journeys. Like, you were talking about like the season 1, 2, 3, like, when you look at like, let me think of an anime right now. Damn it, can't think of. I don't like multi-season animes. That's why. One Piece. There you go. Like, okay, damn, I picked the longest one. But like, you look at first arc Luffy and like the Straw Hat Pirates, like, like, and you look at like where they're at now, like totally different. Like, like, but there's still elements of who they are, like the archetypal like aspects that they embody, like it's still present. You look at Cody Rhodes now versus like who he was like, back then. Like, like people change, I change. Um, I'm very excited too, because like, hey, like I feel like a lot of the criticism like that I endured like, which I try not to let it like get to me, but like, the worst criticisms are from like people you dislike, but when like you dislike them, but they're right, and you're like, ah, damn it,
Right. Yeah.
I hate that. But some of my biggest haters, like they would say like, oh, Bandit Swash, like they can't even wrestle the same anymore. I'm like, I know you're just being mean, but I kind of agree, like, and like it
Mm.
really, and it does take a lot of like swallowing your pride to like admit that to yourself, admit that
Mm.
to like just be like, what, maybe the haters were right after all, like,
Right.
but that's like the first step in improving, because like when you start recognizing like the things that you need to work on, like guess what, you're not gonna like, you're gonna be like, maybe I should stop doing that, maybe I should like do this instead, or maybe I should work on it if I wanted to keep it. So I may have lost like bits and pieces of like how I used to be, but I've definitely gained like bits and pieces of what I wanted to present to the world
Mm.
initially. So I've always wanted to be a high flyer, but like, now it's risky, because of like my injuries and stuff. So like, and like we call it high risk in wrestling, because it's not just a high risk move if you miss and like you pay for it in the ring. It's also a high risk move for your career. So for your life even, right? Like, you know what I mean? So that's where I stand. Like, I have to protect me. I have to protect like the ideals I have put in place for my career. Sorry, I keep burping because I just drank coffee. But yeah, like I have to protect like the things that mattered to the journey that I'm trying to tell. Because like I think that's also like a big aspect, and you kind of like to tie the entire point together. Like I'm not just showing my career path in like oh, check out my match here, check this match here, check this match here. Like, because like I said, like as a wrestling audience is trained, they're expected to be fed like content on a weekly basis, and that's kind of like how they absorb storylines and stuff like that. Not just for like kayfabe, but also like within wrestlers, like lives. And ultimately, I want people to see my journey as like somebody that's like figuring it out, and like because you pointed out like, hey, like if you look at my career path, it's like a band with an overnight single that made like blurbed everywhere, and then suddenly I have to figure like, okay, now how do we like stay up here, how do we not become like a one-hit wonder, so I had to figure that out, and like, hey, that doesn't really happen a lot in wrestling, so
No.
instead of just like being like, hey, check it out, I'm a wrestler, it's more like, hey, this is like the indie wrestling equivalent of an overnight success band, like that's my story. And also, this is the story of a trans woman like transitioning in a public setting in professional wrestling in this day and age. That's my story. But also, hey, this is somebody who played way too many video games, was kind of like neckbeard, fucking sorry. Freaking
Oh, that's okay. No, that's no problem.
okay, sorry, my bad. But like, like just kind of like this loser, like, like the stereotypical wrestling fan. It's like, like the like, the caricature of like, they don't wear deodorant kind of like
Mm.
vibes. I don't perpetuate that. Like, I think everybody like should be like grateful wrestling has fans, like like regardless of like shapes and size. But anyway, like, like that's who I was. And then from there they became this like, okay, like, so like they're wrestling like Zack Sabre Jr., like, you know what I mean, like how, like that's the story of like that. So I'm like Rocky, but I'm also like, I'm Rocky, but I'm also like a rock band one hit wonder, but also like trans woman, like like identifying like, so like, hey, somebody better make a movie out of my life, because like this is all fucking crazy, you know what I mean? But I'm documenting it for everyone to witness, for everyone to see, because like I want to get erased. I don't want it to like
Mm.
just be for nothing, like, and I want everybody to like see that, like, you know for the longest time, there's always been this like aspect of wrestling that's like, it's not meant for everybody. It's not meant for everybody. But it's like, hey, if I can do it, if I can get far, despite everything set against me. By the way, I'm 5'5". Like I never lie about that because I think that's like an important aspect of my character too. Like I'm 5'5", like 5'4" sometimes because I'm barefoot, right? So, but I'm 5'5", and I'm out here killing it. So like I started pretty late too with my age. I wasn't like in my early 20s. I was like past 25 when I first started training. So like, you know, and I'm like, and if you look at where I'm at now, I'm 2 years in technically because like I took a year and a half break. So, you know, I debuted in 2021, but like it's 2025 now. But I had enough time in between where like I'm only like 2 and like so many months in actively competing in the circuit. So like I'm not very far along in my career. Yeah, I'm making waves. I'm doing these matches. I'm getting rave reviews from like, you know, people like that were respectable in the business. You know, I have a fan base inside wrestling and outside wrestling because like I just got called an X-Men by Gail Simone. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like I screamed when I saw that. I was like, you know, but you know what I mean? Like, and I did that despite all odds. That's my story. You know, and I felt like there is a culmination somewhere down the line. Somewhere, you know, like all these seasons are like building into like this big grand old thing. But I don't know what that is. So I'm not trying to like get lost in like preparing for something I'm not gonna know. I'm just gonna live life. You know, like I'm gonna live life. I'm gonna keep telling my story. I'm gonna try to like do right by the people that do right by me, and I'm gonna like enjoy the dream because like I said previously, like not everyone's privileged to do what we do, and fans live vicariously through our actions, through our stories, through our sagas, and you know I gotta take that responsibility seriously, right? So that's what I'm trying to do.
Being trans in the wrestling world, you know, we've had a few different people that are trans now, which is brilliant because I think even say, I was going to say 10 years ago, but even maybe less than that, we just wouldn't have seen that. Looking back at your career now, because you've been transitioning as you've been wrestling, is it weird to kind of look back a couple of years and see yourself there? Is there anything that's like, do you find it like uncomfortable at all, or are you okay with everything that you see there?
Yeah, like what I see now. I'm just kidding. No, because that's I mean, like, okay, I'm able to kind of like, you know, I approach it like Peter Parker Spider-Man, like where like the person behind Kid Bandit when Kid Bandit's not on. Actually,
Mm.
I'm like dressed as her. Like, you know, this is me in the real world. Like I don't have crazy hair walking around in public. Like, yeah, I'll have like colored hair, sure, but like I try to be low key, like, you know,
Mm.
and then because it's also like I don't know, like there's something cool about it when we get to like introduce yourself, like, "What's up? Hey, how you doing?" You know, like, you know, I'm here drinking my like nice little coffee cup, and then like they ask me like, "What do you do?" I'm a deathmatch wrestler. What's up? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So or I haven't had a deathmatch when I came back, but still, like, you know what I mean? Like there is that like level of like, hey, by the way, I'm a secret badass, you know. So there's not a lot of careers that afford you that like superhero identity like um luxury, right? So I I look back at the Kid Bandit from the earlier seasons, and I think, whoa, like that's where I'm from. You know,
Mm.
like that's the stuff I did back then helped shape the person I am now. And maybe there is that level of like, well, like back then I used to be able to like do crazier stuff. I used to be faster. I used to twist more. I used to like hit like the craziest corkscrews into a kick. And I'm
Mm.
just like, how did I do that? You know, like 'cause I'm trying to do that now and like I'm struggling. But there's also stuff I could do now that I couldn't do back then. You know, I have way better like kick control from standing position now because I'm way more flexible. And that's like part of like, you know, transitioning. You just like your bone structure changes, like things about you change, you know. So like we talked about like people evolving. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's no bigger evolution in wrestling than like what I've done. Like because
Right.
not just because like it's like, not just because of the transition, but because of the moves, like that like changed drastically within like a very short span of time. With the look, like the look changed, like almost unrecognizably, like, so, and more importantly, like the I feel like the appeal also changed too, because I do recognize that, like, hey, not everybody's gonna be very like, 'cause, like you said, like in 10 years ago, like a trans woman in wrestling, like that wouldn't be viewed as acceptable and as tolerated, like, as it is today,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But there it is, like, like, and that's not like 10 years isn't that long ago. Like
No.
that's like what, like 2015.
Yeah.
Like that was like around Avengers, like Infinity War, right? Like, yeah, like that's
God,
not that
yeah.
long ago.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm grateful for like pioneers like Dark Sheik, like Nyla, like, like Giselle Shaw, like the people that kind of like Kenny Lee, like they paved the way for people like me. But I feel like it's also cool because like our generation of wrestlers, like, like, because we're all in the scene now, we're all together, we're kind of like defining what it's like for queer wrestlers to be in the future, and I've there was a point in my career where I was arrogant. I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be the one to make it. I'm gonna be the one to, like, be the
Right.
first trans wrestler, and like, my heart, yeah, I want that, like, like, who wouldn't want that, right? But I've also come to peace with the idea that, like, maybe all I am is a stepping stone. Maybe the fight and the struggles I'm facing, it's not gonna lead to me specifically making it,
Mm.
but someone in the future will, and maybe they'll use my career, maybe they'll use like my peers' career as like influences, and they'll be so good that they'll make it to the top, and no one could deny them because they made it. And I'm like thinking like, yeah, it may not be in my lifetime, but it's gonna get there. Like, we're gonna get there. We just have to fight for it. And so that's what being trans in wrestling is to me. Like, it's about chasing my dream, but understanding that, like, hey, it might not lead to anything big. Do it anyway. Because, hey, it could lead to someone else in the future, somewhere down the line. And that's what community is. Like, we help each other. Maybe not directly all the time, but our actions, the way that we approach it, that's how we do it, I got like, okay, I'm not crying. I'm not crying. I have like, because I like chugged the coffee. So it's like giving me like sinus. Okay, there you go.
That's okay. No, it's fine. Um, but yeah, it is amazing to see, and obviously things like Effie's Big Gay Brunch, which is like this big celebration of people from all aspects of the LGBTQ
The alphabet.
scene.
The
Yeah,
alphabet.
but it's amazing because we've got those type of things. But on the same hand, it's not just those types of things, because you can go anywhere now, and it's feeling. I tried to use the right word then, because I don't think gimmick is the right word, because that seems. But in the same way, like, I didn't mean it as an insult, but in the same way as people maybe used to see two females on a card, and you get people saying, "Oh, that's a gimmick because it's different." It's like, no, it's not. But okay, that's the same type of thing now with trans wrestlers or two gay wrestlers. But it's getting to the point now where it's just two wrestlers, which is an
Yeah.
amazing thing. But we've got to touch on the point of the Effys Big Gay Brunch, because you've got a massive matchup on that card. When that I can honestly say I did not see coming.
I didn't either. I didn't either. All right, sorry to cut you off, but
That's
like,
okay.
if
But
you look at okay,
you are
if you
facing
yeah,
Zack Sabre Jr. How cool is that for you?
Okay. All right. True story. I'm studying in the game. I try to be. If if you're a student in the game, you gotta study Zack Sabre Jr. You have to. Like, I'm sorry, that guy is the best. Like at being like he's like a mat wizard. Like I'm talking like magic. Like how do we even get here? I study Zack Sabre Jr. and when Effie announced Zack Sabre Jr. coming to Big Gay Brunch, you could go on Twitter right now and look at my tweets. You can see it. Like I'm like my first reaction was like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever! This is the coolest thing!" I'm like freaking out. I'm like, "Hell yeah, this is so cool! I can't wait to like meet him. I can't wait to like talk to him. I want to ask him, hey, can you watch my match? Give me critiques and whatnot." Like I'm hella excited. The next day, oh, there's the poster. I'm finding out. I'm like, oh. Fight me, you long ass bitch. Like, I gotta go bring it, because that's the best, and we talked about how, a lot of my story is, hey, it's a lot of band overnight success coming out of it, like, oh right, like, like figure it out, I guess, like, this is like the grand finale of it. It's like, hey, finally back. I went through like this crazy transformation, right? Like I had to like bring like the best version of myself back. I had to like come back and be like, yeah, no, you know what I wanted to be? I wanted to be known as a good wrestler. Cause like, let's talk about like a little bit, like you touched up on it. It's like back then it was a gimmick match. Like, I'll bring in the gays, we'll bring in the fags. But we'll bring him in that way, like, we'll attract that demographic. But now it's like, hey, these are two wrestlers. Like, Effie is the world champion. Like, Nyla won the AEW Women's Championship. Championship. Like the second one in the company, I believe, right? So there's that, like, Giselle Shaw is like killing it at Maple Leaf, like, pro. So like a lot of us are coming out, like Dark Sheik, like, oh my gosh, like, like, are you kidding me? Like all the stuff that she accomplishes, like, and she's facing Effie, like, at the Big Gay Brunch too. So there's a lot of like layers of like, as a wrestler, I wanted to make sure that nobody could wrestle like me. Like, sure, there's a lot of stuff I do that's similar to other wrestlers, but for the most part, like, when you watch a Kid Man match, a lot of the stuff I do, the way I flow things together, the offenses that I use, the moves that I like, create, and like the creativity that I try to apply to like how I present like my craft, like, that's unique to me. So like, yeah, sure, people could try to book me as like a marquee demographic, like pull, like as a DEI, like, like booking, but I understand, like, I'm not giving them that kind of like presentation. I'm giving them like, hey, you want to see some cool anime kicks? You want to see some like stuff from like Arkham Asylum that like you want like in the wrestling ring? That's what I bring to the table. Like, like, that's what I do. I do some anime stuff. Like, I try to bend the laws of physics here. I do this thing, or I do this thing, like right here. Kamehameha. Like, I'll do that if you want me to. So I needed to eliminate that like element that I'm only getting booked because I was like a particular like demographic. Like, no, you booked me because I'm cool, like, because I wrestle cool, and that was very integral for me. And like, like I know Pero and I had our differences in the brunch before, and they beat my ass. But like, one of the cool things that like we talked about backstage once was like how he would tell me like, one thing cool about you is that, like, yeah, you're trans, but that has like very little bearing on how you wrestle at all. Like, like you just wrestle the way you do, so that meant a lot to me because that's what I was going for. So being able to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr., and as a martial artist, like, I'm a striker, like, I train a lot of my kicks, but I do submissions too. But like, there is that point of pride of like, hey, like, every martial artist wants to test the best. Like, they want to see where they stand against like the best in the world at one point in their life. This is it for me. Like, this is me getting to test whether my style could keep up with his style, whether my kicks can overcome his like, technical mastery. Like, am I gonna be fast enough? Because I only need 3 seconds. I only need 3 seconds to like knock him out. Like, and hey, like, here's the thing. You see it in UFC, you see it in like, in MMA, you see it in like Muay Thai, like little person with like 100-pound difference, like they get lucky every once in a while with a nice kick to the face. And guess what? I've been training for the last year and a half, kick to the face. So like, hey, I might get lucky. And I wouldn't, and it wouldn't be like a luck as in like, oh, like miscalculation or whatever. I'll get lucky because I'm gonna increase my chances of performing great by putting in the work, and that's what I do. There's a famous saying by Cody Rhodes that like the famous promo in the AEW, like undesirable to undeniable, and that resonates with me, one, because it sounds cool as heck. Like, that's the tagline for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like he's the master of taglines, like, honestly. But like, finish the story, undesirable, undeniable. But like, as a queer person, that line resonated differently to me. Like, like, you look at him and you think like, oh yeah, like, undesirable to undeniable. Like, and I feel like that's an allegory for Stardust into like who he was in AEW, right? But for someone like me, who is a triple minority, then at least in America, right? Like, I'm a queer, I'm an immigrant, I'm Asian, and I'm also, I'm a 5'5" wrestler. Like, being short in wrestling sucks. Like, it really sucks. I'm sorry. Like, it just sucks. Period. Like, so much going against me. In my eyes, I'll always be undesirable. Like, to the higher ups, I'm not marketable. I'll always be undesirable. But I know I can be undeniable, and there's no better way to, like, I hate to say it, but like, in wrestling, if you're good, you can get away with a lot of bad shit. Like, like, you see some heinous people still getting bookings in this day and age because they're good at wrestling, and it's like, okay, shit, like, whatever, I guess. Those are undesirables, and I hate it because I try to be a good person, but in some people's eyes, I'm undesirable. Like, I can never change their minds. Like, that's just how they view people like me. But wrestling affords me the opportunity to become undeniable just by being good. And if I could say I kept up with like the best wrestlers in the world, like, and this isn't my first time like facing someone who is like top talent in that field. Like, I wrestled Malachi Black. Like everybody knows Malachi Black's one of the best strikers in wrestling. I've wrestled Miyu Yamashita. Like, like, she kicked the shit out of me. But like, like, when, you know what I mean? Like, so, I feel like facing these like incredible like Johnny TV, like, facing all these incredible strikers have like taught me like, okay, I may have come up short, but I'm able to keep up. I know when it comes down to it, I have a little bit of like a uniqueness about the way I kick with the way I strike that like they don't embody, and I just need to like fine tune that stuff. And here's the thing about Zach. It's like, he's very unpredictable with his submissions, very much so. Yeah. You gotta be careful what limb you give him, because like, it's gonna get twisted. But I like to think I'm very creative too. Like, I like to think that I have some aspects of myself that like he won't be expecting. And here's the thing: everybody studies Zack Sabre Jr., but nobody studies Kid Bandit, because everybody thinks Kid Bandit's just this like whoopsie doo, laxy lady da, and like, hey, right, that catches people off guard, because like they underestimate how fast I could kick. So like, I like I said, only need 3 seconds. If I could beat the best, or keep up with the best, then then it validates everything, really. And I'm not coming into that match to try to validate myself for the rest of the world. Like, no, fuck the world. This is for me. Like, I want to prove to myself I can keep up with the best. Like, this, I'm not wrestling this match the way I'm doing it to say, oh, hey, by the way, sign me, guys. Like, no, like, they'll come to me when I'm undeniable, and I'm working my way up there, because I'll always be undesirable, but I could be undeniable too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, Zach is obviously one of the biggest wrestlers from the UK, one of the most prestigious wrestlers from the UK. He's been killing it for Wow.
So long now, actually. Like,
Yeah, I don't want to age him, but a long time. Um,
yeah.
but you also came to the UK a couple of years ago, and we've thrown some clips together here from some of the
Yes.
matches in the UK. I love that you had a little Smith's bag with you there. Um, um, what was it like when you came to the UK? Like, what were some of your experiences when you were here?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. I can't wait to be back. I'm messaging companies all the time saying like, "Hey, can I come back? Please, can I come back?" Like, look at that. I'm like drinking like
Yeah,
a pint, and then like they're telling me chug that shit. I was like, "Oh fuck!" So you mean I gotta wrestle like after chugging a whole? I gotta wrestle Will Cruz after chugging a pint after he chugs a pint? Like what? Like, what do you mean we're wrestling in the cathedral? What do you mean the next day I'm wrestling in a brewery? What do you
mm,
mean I'm wrestling Simon Miller? What do you mean I'm tagging with Simon? Like, like it was chaotic in such a fun, hectic way, and I could not get enough of it. And my best friend, like, he's from the UK. His name is Dan Evans. He's a wrestler out there, based out of Liverpool. So like, hey, wrestling promotions out there, if you're watching, like, book my friend too. But like, he and I, like, we're both introverts, so like we just talk about video games all the time. Like we
yeah,
binge watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners while playing Cyberpunk at the same time. It was awesome. Like, and stuff like that. And meeting like people like Stephanie Sterling, like, who it was a big deal on YouTube and stuff.
yeah,
And then I wrestled Stephanie Sterling in the main event, like in the cathedral, and like, in the QWI match of the year. Like what? And that was like the day I got injured too. So like, you know everything I've done in the UK was like life changing. I remember the first time I got like thrown in like this like dog pit, essentially, where there was like, like I had to stay there, and I had to like tell people like, somebody please save me, like, why am I here? And then I got stranded in Ibiza, like, because like, I was supposed to like fly to Italy, and then they messed up my name, and I tried to call them, and they didn't speak English, and I'm like, oh crap, like what do I do? I guess I'm stranded here, like, and I go outside, it's like, wait, this is a nice place. Like, okay, if I'm gonna get stranded somewhere, it's Ibiza. Like,
yeah.
I'm yeah, cool. Like, not bad at all, And then I go back home to the UK, and then we go just walk around everywhere. Like, I'm a big fan of like of football. Like, watching Dan because I mean I'm not like I don't keep up with football. Don't get me wrong, but like I like watching it with my friend because like he just
Mm.
goes ape shit every time his like team loses. Like, I never see you like this. You're such a cool person, but like when your team loses, you just want to break shit. And then and then like Limp Bizkit plays in my head, and it was just such a fun experience. Like last time I was there, I got to see a band like in a pub, and I'm like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, so I can't wait to be back. Like, and I love the weather. I love the architecture. I love the people. I
Mm.
love the I I love the comic book stores. Like for some reason, it just hits different. Like, are you kidding me? How does that work? Like, like you walk in and it's just like I feel like I'm in the '90s right now. Like why can't it always feel like this in a comic book store? You know what I mean? So as a little geeky, nerdy little me, like navigates like this wonderful country. I just felt like a lot of the expectations I had of the UK, like, just was like smashed. It was just like, yo, this
Mm.
is the coolest fucking thing ever. I don't know how you guys live out here. This is like the like I like this feels like a dream for me. So and I've joked with Dan, it's like if I could move out here, I would. Like, are you kidding me? Like, like the only thing that's keeping it from because like my job's in Hollywood, so like I gotta be around the area, but like but that's how it is. Like I'm just like, yo, what? Like I know there's problems here and there like about like travel, like like that I had to deal with in the past, and I'm for the most part I had like such a blast both times I've been. So and like I know like there's an element of me is like, well, that's also the place I got hurt, like I'm like
Right.
I don't look back and think of that at all, like at all. It's just it's a place, like it's a place I want to like eventually make it feel like home. Like I want to keep
Mm.
coming back and enjoying it, and basically just live that culture, because like you guys out there, like you just have like the coolest experience of like, and it's a daily thing for you guys. It's like, what?
Mm.
This is like, and I live in Los Angeles. Are you kidding me? Like, so there it is. That's how I feel about my experiences. nothing but like the coolest things ever. I'm gonna kind of like out myself as a little bit of a poser here, but I love the Sex Pistols. Sorry, I know they're not that great anymore, but like
Well,
I like, but I used to like them as a
yeah,
kid.
there you
Okay,
go.
girl. Okay, cool, awesome, awesome. I love a lot of the Libertines, like Pete Doherty.
Mm,
I like a lot of British music, basically. So like, and growing up, like I had a phase where I just listened to the Gorillas all the time. So like, so just like there's definitely like elements of vacation that I get to take advantage of every time I visit. Like, it's not just like I'm out there to wrestle. No, I'm out there to like experience a lot of the things that I really enjoyed growing up.
mm,
Like I'm a big fan of like Arthurian myth. Like like straight up like just my growing up, I grew up in a place called I grew up in like it was like kind of like a subdivision, like of like squatters. Like, cause I grew up in poverty, right? Um, but like it wasn't like I wasn't like a squatting or anything. I wasn't that poor, but like we weren't like we didn't have a great. I didn't have a great upbringing. Like basically,
mm.
I was we were very poor. But the irony is that the place that we lived in was called Camelot. So it's
Right.
like and my dad's name is Arthur, and I'm like, what?
Okay.
And the street I like lived in as a kid was Lancelot, and and like, hey, like, I didn't speak a lot of English, but we were learning, and one of the books I read as a kid was like Arthurian myth, so like it was the legend of King Arthur. So it's like, all right, like there's a lot of things about like my expectations for the UK because
Mm,
like I grew up a fantasy geek. I grew up like listening
right.
to Gorillaz and like a lot of British punk bands and stuff like the Buzzcocks, like the
Hmm.
Clash, like the Addicts, like like I just listened to a lot of these like um British bands growing up too. So like Blur, like like yeah, so Oasis. I'm sorry, I'm a big fan of Oasis too. Like I love Oasis. Actually, I was trying to think like what else is British actually.
Yeah, they're my favorite band.
Really? Yeah. No.
Yes.
Good music taste. Good music taste. And here's the thing too. I was like I like I'll incorporate a lot of elements of like music into my performance. Like
Mm,
in my head, like wrestling's a little bit of a dance. Like like you're kind of like going in a beat, and my beat is like punk. Like like
yeah.
so yeah. Britain has like a very lively punk scene that like I've yet to like fully explore. I got a taste for it. I want to like
Mm,
keep like and and I feel like there's the queer element too, like in the British
mm,
underground, which is like
yeah.
I haven't experienced that yet. So like so there's definitely like a lot of drive for me to come back and like live that life, like like experience more the Isles have to offer, essentially.
Growing up in the Philippines, you slightly mentioned it then. Um, for some reason, and it's not by design, we've had a bit of a Philippines theme kind of going on in the channel lately. Tonight, as we're doing this interview, we've got an interview with TJP going up. Um,
Please tell him I said hello.
I will do. So that'll be going live. And the other week, we interviewed a wrestler from the Philippines called Super P. And
Ah, okay, yes, that's
when I was
awesome.
speaking to Super P, she's obviously hasn't travelled outside of the Philippines, but they start in their own almost like punk scene. It's like a DIY scene within the Philippines, and I just thought it was just the coolest thing ever because they're talking about how they've only got one ring. They can't even disassemble the ring. They just have to push it into the corner when they're not using it and things like that. What obviously like there wasn't much of a scene there. So how did wrestling become such a big part of your life from being there?
Well, it's weird, right? Like the wrestling scene, as far as like performance, like isn't big, but I
Mm,
feel like it's always been big in the Philippines, or at least like when I was
right.
growing up, all my friends were into it. Like and I couldn't like I tell this story a lot, but like my exposure to it wasn't like TV because like I didn't have cable. Like, like we're poor.
Mhm.
We had like local TV, and that's it. But I did have a PS1. I had a PS1. Everybody else had a PS2. I had a PS1, and I had one game because we were broke, and it was SmackDown 2 Know Your Role. And at the time, I didn't realize like this was wrestling. I thought it was just like a fighting game. And then
Mm.
like and then it kind of understood. Oh, this is based out of real people. Like I would like and then like my friends would talk about wrestling because like they had cable, and I'm like, because I went to like a, so I was poor, but I went to a school for the rich. Like it was like
Right.
my classmates would be like kids of like mayors and senators and actors and stuff like that. So I'm just like, man, like I can't relate to them because like I'm poor. I can't afford all the nice things that they're talking about. But like whenever they talk about wrestling, I'm like, I know that person. Yeah, I know Stone Cold. Yeah, because I play SmackDown so Your Role. So eventually I got PS2 and I got SmackDown versus Raw '07.
Mhm.
Great game. So I got that in 2006 too. So like I remember the year I got it because like it was because I didn't get a lot of opportunities to, like, and I was a big gamer because I like didn't I couldn't really like hang out with my friends because they were too rich.
Mm.
Like and I never there was like that element of like I don't think their parents wanted them hanging out with me. I was like
Right.
kid gutter kind of like that got to the school because I was like smart. I did good in the tests and stuff like that. So I had to kind of like you know use video games as like my way of like having a social life, as it were. Like that would be like how I would play with people. Like I play online games with people like with my computer. I'd have like my PS2 and I play SmackDown versus Raw '07 with my friends. Like they'd come over, like like they could come over for that. Like as long as like we don't go out. So that was like, or I'd go over to theirs and like we could play it, and I'd be able to keep up because like I know how to play a game. So wrestling kind of became my way of like connecting with people in a way, and it bridged a lot of people too. And I remember the very first time I ever went to a live event in my life. It was it was when Raw went to the Philippines, and I was like, "Oh shoot, like yeah, let's go." And I remember seeing all these people gathered, and I'm like, I've never experienced being in an arena with all these people just screaming loudly. Like it was such a cool experience, and I kept thinking like, "Oh, like." How come we don't do that in the Philippines? Like, why don't we have anything like that? So seeing Super P and like their companies, like form like a community, like it's very DIY. Like that's inspiring to me because like that tells me like and like there's a similar story with like the like SGW Uganda, like like we saw
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
like wrestling off ground, like and then they got a ring because like the community came together. So like we talk about like sometimes wrestling can be crass, but like when it's good, it's great, right? So like you hear stories about like how like these people, they love wrestling so much that they're gonna build their own ring. They're gonna like
Yeah.
figure out a way to make it work. They're gonna like do whatever they can to like follow their dreams and stuff like that. And that resonates with me, and I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people. Like like finding your path to wrestling, like it's a personal journey for you. Like it's not something that like it's not something that like you decide one day and wake up and be like, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna happen. Like no, like you're gonna have to like keep waking up and keep doing it and like keep at it because like we talked about how like my career was basically kind of like an overnight success. It was like yeah, it
Hmm.
was, but it really wasn't because like I had to do a lot to get to that point. And then my
Yeah.
switch turned on and I still had to do a lot to stay at that point. And then when I got injured, I had to do a lot to get back to where I am. And then facing Zack Sabre Jr., I still have a lot to like do. And then I got Japan coming up, and then that, and like so it's like it never ends. It will never end. Like you look at guys like John Cena, like you think like he stopped being like elite, like
Yeah.
like once he won his first like WWE championship. No, when Kenny Omega like had like that like 7-star classic with Okada, did he stop being the best bat machine? No, like it just keeps on going, and that's like that's the fighting spirit, and like the guys over the Philippines, like and the girls, like they embody that so much because like they have so much going against them. So much going against them. They don't have like a lot of like the connections and stuff like that, but somehow they do now. Somehow they figured it out, and that's cool as heck. That is like the coolest thing ever because like that tells everybody that like no matter what, you will chase your dream, you will follow their footsteps. What was that saying, Brian Danielson? You have to fight for your dreams because your dreams will fight for you. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what people are doing. And like, and we talked earlier about like how wrestling stories resonate with people. Like their journey will resonate for like the next generation of Filipino wrestlers. And it's cool because we're seeing more and more of those coming into play. And we talked a little bit about like, trans representation earlier, but like, look, we could also talk about a little bit about like Asian representation in wrestling. That hasn't gone over well, like over the last couple like years, and like so many like mediums. But here we are now. We're fighting for that representation. They are fighting for their representation, and like nothing but mad respect, because like, like everybody loves an underdog story. Like, like the series is saying, there's only really 7 stories. And it's funny because Dark Sheik just like talked to me about that recently. But like, there's only really 7 stories. But like, I feel like everybody's favorite is the classic, the underdog, the David versus Goliath. Like, and I'm glad that they are fighting for their dreams. I'm glad that like despite all the odds, they're doing it, because it's not easy. It's not like wrestling is a very thankless, toxic sometimes, like, environment that like will drain the life out of you if you don't know how to like dig deep. So, but seeing people like that persevere, that inspires people. That inspires me. Like, in my head, I'm like thinking, well, I, I didn't have to build my own ring. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I have to endure my own hardships. I've never had to like build my own ring just so I could train. No, I could just go to like a random school, like somewhere, and then bump and train there. You know what I mean? Like, I have that luxury here in America. They didn't. They had to build their own community. They had to start from scratch, and they get the luxury of defining what kind of like scene they will have. So that is amazing. They're literally making history for that country, for my home country, where I'm from. So it's like, so I have nothing but respect for the people out there, because like I think I may not be able to relate to how difficult it is to like start from scratch, but I definitely could relate to like just having so much going against you, but still chasing, just still going for it. So massive props. I'm so glad. I know she just got hurt recently. So
yeah, unfortunately, in typical fashion, it was the day after we interviewed her. I was like, oh no.
knocking on wood now.
I know. So yeah. Please don't jinx this. Please don't jinx this.
Yeah, but like, because I'm literally like gonna go train like right after this interview too, so it's funny. But yeah, like like she'll come back stronger. Like, that's what heroes do, right?
Exactly. Last thing before we do let you go and go to train, me and my wife, we've just finished watching Death Note for about the 4th time, right?
Okay.
So we've just. It seems to be every few years. We're like, oh, should we start Death Note again? Yeah, this, and then you end up binge watching it. And then there's always that part halfway through the series where the theme tune changes, and it blows our mind every time we get to it. But as somebody who, yes, so obviously anime and manga is a big part, plays a big part in your character. What series would you recommend to us we are kind of fringe fans? We haven't really delved that far into the anime scene just yet.
All right. You got something, right, man?
Yes, I'll take notes.
All right. So, and this you could gift this or clip it or whatever, but this is Kid Bandit's Kid Bandit's entry pack. All right.
Brilliant.
So, full disclosure, I feel like anime, like some animes are serialized, so like they're just gonna keep on like churning, and like, and I feel like it's difficult to suggest those animes to like fringe fans, because like they're like, oh, like, what do you mean One Piece has over 1,000 episodes? I'm not like, like I can't devote like all my time to that. It's like Doctor Who, like, like I feel like Doctor Who fans, like, they have to like kind of start like at a certain point, otherwise like they'll come into a new season, they're like, what's the context here, why is everybody freaking out? I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I started like Doctor Who with like season 9, I believe, Leather Jacket, Doctor. So so like even then I like there were elements I was like, what does that mean, like, so I feel like if I'm recommending anime to people, I have to start with like animes that have endings. So you ready? First one, Trigun. It is a space western anime Very good characterization. I believe it's only like 20, 30 episodes long, so it has a beginning and an end. Very very cool dynamics. Avoids a lot of like avoids dragging the story out, and I feel like that's like the kind of like stuff nobody really likes is like when things are like fillers. I feel like that's like a negative aspect of anime is like because like they're just trying to fill time until like the manga gets further along so they can churn out more story arcs. So Trigun is my first recommendation. That's one of my favorite animes. The second one, Cowboy Bebop, space cowboy as well, but like, but different, Ghost in the Shell, classic cyberpunk masterpiece. Let's see, Berserk, the '90s Berserk, little dark, very dark fantasy. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you would love Berserk. Samurai Champloo, made by the same creator of Cowboy Bebop. That one's actually one of my personal favorites. I really love the sword fighting choreography out there, and the character dynamics as well. It's very very unique. So if you're a fan of Assassin's Creed Shadows, like that, like check out Samurai Champloo, I guess. Let me think. If you like serialized or you're willing to commit to a little bit of a longer anime, I definitely recommend. Actually, I'm watching anime now. I'm watching Pokemon Horizons over at Netflix. But that one's a good one if you're a fan of Pokemon. It doesn't. It's a shorter version of. So basically, it's set in the Pokemon universe, but it's not Ash's crew anymore. So you don't have to like start from like the '90s, like Ash and like, and Pikachu's still there. So like, maybe you don't know these characters, but you know Pikachu. You know what I mean? So there's that, and it's a good like young adult like adventure, very lighthearted. Let me think. If you like mystery animes, Parasite, ooh, that's a good one. Or yeah, Parasite it's a good anime to like check out. Trying to think of like something very Death Note-y. Oh, if you like detective stories, a Detective Conan, that one's a little bit more like long. It has like a lot of story arcs, but it's not a bad one to get into. And lastly, this one's like in my opinion, it's like the ultimate like shonen anime. Yu Yu Hakusho. Because like normally I would suggest Naruto or Dragon Ball Z. But Yu Yu Hakusho I feel like is easier to get into for if you're like kind of delving into the anime because the anime world, because Yu Yu Hakusho does have a definitive end. It's not as long as like Naruto, it doesn't like take years to complete. It's like it'll take a couple of months for sure, but like it's got a good story arc. It's about demons and ghosts, and it turns into a martial arts kumite, like a blood sport kind of like, and like that's the coolest part. It's like, hey, it starts off with like dealing with demons and ghosts, and suddenly we're like fist fighting them in like a martial arts tournament. It's like, how do we get here? You'll have to see, you know what I mean? So but yeah, so highly recommend Yu Yu Hakusho for sure. It's a good one. So yeah, those are my recommendations.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Like I said, I've wanted, even before I started the podcast, you were one of the names that I definitely wanted to have on if we started one. So thank you so much again. Please stay on the line, and we'll do a proper goodbye as soon as we wrap this up as well.
Okay.
Guys, another amazing podcast on the channel. Thank you for tuning in today. I think you'll find that Kid Bandit's story is a really, really great story. We are only just starting season 3, but I got a feeling that this is where it's going to start to really get wild, and it's going to grow and grow, and it's going to be on this massive scale during this season. If you enjoyed the first 2 seasons, I got a feeling this is going to be the one that is going to take it to a whole new level. But thank you so much, guys, for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. Leave some comments down below, because it always helps the algorithm and things like that. And as always, guys, take care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.